Hi, welcome to Floral Friday. I'm Jenny Martin, ethnobotanist, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being with this incredible tree. So this tree behind this gate here is what's believed to be one of our oldest trees in the whole of Europe. It's Taxus baccata, and this is our European yew tree. So this is estimated to be between 1,500 and potentially, some records say 9,000 years old. But the reason why we find it so hard to age this tree is because yew trees don't age the way that most of our trees age, in that the trunk actually becomes hollow over time. And you'll see here with this particular yew tree, what they've done is they've marked out the original trunk. So we can't, because we don't have the original trunk, we can't core it and then count the annual ring growths to know how old it is. It's a very slow growing tree, and it's a tree that we will often find in graveyards, and you won't really particularly find it out in the wilds. It does grow in the wilds, but not as commonly as you think, considering it is one of our only 3 native conifers in the UK. One of the hypotheses might be for that is that our ancestors used this tree a lot for making longbows and spears. It's very slow growing, so if you're cutting down a tree for making longbows and spears, then it will take a long time for them to regrow in order to replenish them in the wild. So that's possibly one hypothesis. Another is that the yew tree is actually very toxic. The needles contain an alkaloid which is used actually in a chemotherapy drug, so doxytaxel, and the Pacific yew tree, paclitaxel. But it was known, maybe these alkaloids weren't known to our ancestors, but what was known that it is a toxic tree. So eating the needles, then you would see in their livestock will die. So the belief was that they were planted in churchyards, which are usually fenced in order to keep livestock out. So if you're going to look at the yew tree, and if you're into your wild foods, you need to be super careful. If you're making pine needle tea, for instance, this is not the tree you want to make. You don't want to mix up your needles with the needles of the yew tree. So the yew tree is a dioecious plant, which means that the plant has, the tree will either be male or it will be female. So you'll either see male flowers on it or you'll see female flowers on it. So dioecious, di to aecious, home. And here the Fortingall yew is known to be a male yew tree. And you can have a look, there's some buds here, and some of them will be flower buds for next year. So the green buds will turn into some male flowers. However, they have been known to change sex, and there are some limbs of the yew, and I've noticed here, and in fact I've even got some on my finger here from the seed, that the aril, which is, I'll talk about in a minute, there are some berries in inverted commas, so there are some limbs that have actually changed sex and are producing are now a female part of the tree, which is really fascinating. So the yew tree is one of our 3 native conifers that we have in the UK. So we have the Scots pine, we have the juniper, and we have the yew. It doesn't look to people like a traditional conifer because it doesn't have pine cones, as the juniper doesn't have pine cones. And what makes it a conifer is that the seed is not enveloped in an ovary. So the seed is naked. So the seed will grow in the axils or between the leaves and the end of the twigs. And once it's pollinated, the seed will develop, and at the bottom of the seed is a bract, and that bract will grow into what is known as a fleshy areole. Something I really like about the areoles is one of the old folk names for them in English folk now is snotty gobs, and they are like that. They're kind of like really goppy. They are like sweeties, but you really please do not eat them. I wouldn't recommend eating them because you just scrape your teeth on the stone on the inside, you swallow it by mistake, you're in big trouble. So how are we going to identify yew? Hopefully most of us can identify yew. It's very, very flaky bark, and the leaves, you can feel, compared to most conifers, the leaves are incredibly soft. If you, they lie in a flat plane, and generally they are uniform, so yew uniform. So some people will get this confused with a fir tree, but you can see the leaves, in most firs you have different sizes of leaves. The leaves here are uniform, they're all the same length. The twigs that at the end of the stems, they're a green colour. And also if you flip them over, underneath on the firs you see the white stomata, but on the yew tree is very undefined. You can see some markings underneath, but it's not nearly as defined as the fir trees. Another thing that's quite interesting is, I'm sorry allergy sufferers, but there is a scale called the Opus scale of how much the pollen can produce problems for people, and it's a scale of 1 to 10, and on the Opus scale the pollen from the male flowers of the yew tree hit a 10, so it is a real problem for people who have allergies and hay fever or can be allergic to pollen. If you're collecting fungi and they are in the vicinity of a yew tree, be really careful, because if your fungi is anyway parasitic or even symbiotic, it is potentially going to be absorbing some of those alkaloids of the yew tree. So you really actually want to be very careful with harvesting fungi around yew trees. So enjoy Taxus baccata, the yew tree. If anyone is out there who has a loved one going through chemotherapy, know that docetaxel you're still getting some of the alkaloids that are extracted directly from the leaves of this yew tree, even though it's also chemically synthesized. So the power of the yew tree is helping them get well. So yeah, enjoy, and I'll see you soon.